Welcome back, legends. I hope you're all fantastic. It is not only Friday, meaning it's time for another installment of Friday Q&A. It's Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas to all of you, and it is the 150th Q&A that I've done. So thank you all so much, not just to the people who submitted questions for this week's video, but to people who have submitted questions over the entire course of this Q&A series. And if you have questions you would like me to answer in next week's Q&A, do not hesitate to put them in the comment section below. As always, if you want to support the channel directly, either by buying some music that I make with my band Ragdoll or some of our merch, or if you want to support me directly on Patreon, you can check the video description. You can also get some stuff like some free impulse responses in there. Let's get straight into this week's questions. Have I ever tried bare knuckle cold sweat humbuckers? And if I have, what do I think about them? I have tried those in a Les Paul. I think one of the early 90s style Les Pauls that one of my buddies owned. And look, if you like the John Sykes thing, they do the John Sykes thing very well. I think they sounded pretty similar to the Gibson Dirty Fingers pickups that I have in one of my old Grecos, and that does the Sykes thing big time. And basically everything bare knuckle that I've ever tried has been fantastic. So if that's the sort of sound that you're chasing, then probably can't do too wrong with those particular pickups. I've also tried a few of their other humbuckers. Like I said, I really like their Holy Divers set. I've heard that in a few other things. And yeah, they're just really, really consistent. They have their own thing going on, and you know, they seem to be pretty high quality. I think they're one of the few things where you really get what you pay for. Am I excited about the new King's X album? Well, yes, I'm very, very excited. I'm always excited to hear more King's X, but what do I think it will sound like? I kind of have no idea. I think it depends on who's written the songs. If it's mostly like a Ty Tabor set of songs, then it might have more of that like Gretchen Goes to Nebraska or, you know, Manic Moonlight style thing, which is, I guess, more in that kind of Beatlesy poppy direction. Or if Doug's been writing all the songs and all the riffs, it's going to be, you know, angry, down-tuned, groovy stuff. And I always like the angry, down-tuned, groovy stuff and the Beatlesy stuff. So I'm sure whatever they put out, if they're happy with it, all the King's X fans out there are going to be super duper happy, because if you're a King's X fan, kind of like being a Rush fan, you know, it's on that borderline of being a cult. You're just going to lap up whatever they put out. Maybe that's because the people who listen to it really, really care about what they put out, and they take the time to listen to it deeply and don't just give it one spin and go, well, this doesn't sound exactly like they sounded in 1989. Not interested. So I think with bands like that, it's probably one of those things where, you know, people are really into the music, so they listen to it more, so they get more into the music. What is that, a feedback loop? Do I use the Axe Effects as an interface, and would I recommend it as an interface? I don't use it all the time. I don't use it as my main interface. A lot of the stuff that I do here, I need to record my speaking voice, so I have the Universal Audio Apollo Twin, but I am going out of the Axe via SPDIF. I have a little SPDIF to optical converter, and I basically use the Axe as like more inputs to the Apollo. It works amazingly well like that, but if I'm tracking guitars and I need to cut a DI, it's awesome for that. Klon, Tube Screamer, is there sort of a middle ground or another drive pedal you should try? I would say that the obvious choice would be a Bluesbreaker style drive, you know, like a Analog Man, King of Tone, or any of the other Bluesbreaker style clones out there. Companies like Cherrytone do pedals like the Horsebreaker, which gives you a Klon and a Bluesbreaker style drive in there. I haven't tried one of those personally, but I have tried, you know, a King of Tone style pedal and a Klon style pedal. They definitely do different things. I think the Bluesbreaker thing is maybe a little bit more towards the like colored Tube Screamer thing, but you know, I don't think you can really go wrong with either a Klon or a Tube Screamer for a lot of different purposes. You know, depending on the music that you're playing, the Tube Screamer is going to have more of its own character going on. It's got that mid-hump thing. You always know when it's a Tube Screamer, whereas the Klon just kind of gives you more of what you already like about your rig. So if you're just trying to get more of your existing tone, maybe go for something a bit more clon-like. If you really want to change up your main tone, then go for the tube screamer. Again, it depends on the style of music you're playing. I think I'm just assuming you're playing bluesy stuff into a clean amp, but maybe that would be a good follow-up question. Let me know what style of music are you playing where you're tossing up between those two drives, and would you go for a bluesbreaker style thing, or you could get something like the Cherrytone Horsebreaker, which has a clon style circuit and a bluesbreaker style circuit in the same unit. What is the worst piece of gear I've tried over the course of all my gear demos? And, is it particularly memorable for any particular reason? Because it's Christmas Eve and we're getting to Christmas, I'm reminded of one particular piece of gear that I got for Christmas when I was a lot younger. My dad went out and bought me this, spent quite a bit of money on it, and it was a brand new thing at the time. It was the Line 6 tone port, because I really wanted to get into recording at the time, and this thing looked like it would do things that I wanted to do, but it was one of those Christmas disappointments, unfortunately, and I'm not sure if it was actually the unit or it was a computer I was trying to use it with, or it was just a case of user error on my part. But I could get this thing to make a guitar sound for about 3 seconds and then it would stop working. And the guitar sounds I was getting at the time, I remember kind of going, hey, this is pretty cool. If I could just get it to actually not stop working for like 5 minutes in between these 3-second clips, I'd be pretty happy. But yeah, that one went back to the store the next day and I got a wireless, which was amazing fun. When you're 15, 16 and you've got a wireless, you immediately become the coolest guitar player out of your group of guitar friends. So I could, sit at the bottom of the stairs and have an amp up in my room, even louder than I would have it. I would have been such an annoying teenager. Another more recent piece of gear that was a little bit disappointing, I bought a used ensoniq DP4. I really have been wanting to check one of those out, and it arrived not functioning, and upon seeing the way it was built, it really looked kind of dodgy, and I can understand why those units tend to fail people a lot. So I was lucky that I was able to return that one and ship it back and get my money back, which I spent on another cool piece of rack gear. But yeah, I still really want to try a DP4 or a DP2, but seeing the DP4, I can, totally sympathize with people who went out and bought those and have them just absolutely fall apart, because compared to some of the other rack stuff that I have, this thing was a pretty lousy build quality. I didn't get to hear it though, and I understand they do sound pretty awesome. There's plenty of other turds out there that I could talk about, but I try to spend my time on this channel talking about the good stuff that you can go out and buy or try or get used. So if you don't see a particular piece of gear on the channel that maybe you do see on other channels, then maybe there's a reason for it. What's my take on the EVH Iconic amps that have just come out, and what do I make about the so-called drama about the way the official demo sounded? So I'd seen some people saying the official demo didn't sound that great, and upon checking it out, I thought it sounded fine. It kind of just sounds like a mic'd up amp, and it looks like they've got some kind of dynamic and ribbon mic combo on there. It's not necessarily the sound I would go for with that particular amp, but it just kind of sounds like a mic'd up amp. And Frankie, who's playing guitar on that, sounds phenomenal. Great player, and it's really easy to overlook how difficult it is to play like that in that kind of settings. So mad props to Frankie, great chops on there. But I was listening to it and kind of thinking, what might people want to hear if they're hearing an EVH style amp? So I took it upon myself to make some post-production tweaks to it. I'll show you what they are. So yeah, basically just take some of the high end out and it will sound less fizzy in post-production. I think that's what a lot of people are hearing. They're hearing that unattenuated high end from a 57, which sounds like a 57 on a speaker cab. You know, that's what real amps with real microphones sound like. And then of course you add pitch detune and you add delay and reverb, and it's going to sound a little more Van Halen-y. So yeah, there's an absolutely futile exercise in reproducing somebody else's clip. How big's my ego today? But I would love to get my hands on one of those amps and do a demo with my gear, and you know, maybe put it side by side with like my Soldano or some other amps that people really like the sound of that I demo every now and then. So if you'd like to hear me demo an EVH Iconic, let me know in the comments. This one comes from friend of the channel and certified legend, Mr. Michael Nielsen. Do I watch Love Island Australia? Mate, Australia is Love Island. That is a totally accurate representation of just daily life for us. So why would I want to go and watch TV when I can just look out the window? What's my favorite hair metal album? I feel like I was asked this particular question not too long ago, and I will probably give a different answer to it. But I would probably have to say maybe the first Skid Row album, just because I listened to that one a lot when I got my hands on it. Extreme Pornography would be another one that comes to mind, and like maybe a dark horse in there, the Don Dokken Up From the Ashes solo album, because that has some fantastic songs, great production, and some ridiculous playing from John Norum and Billy White. But if you ask me this question tomorrow, I might say like Rat, Out of the Cellar, and Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood as well. So yeah, there's a lot of albums which I think represent that particular sound. And you know, I don't think it's a White Lion album, put it that way, because while I love Vito, you know, White Lion are one of those bands which I just didn't listen to a whole lot myself. So I know a lot of people out there love White Lion though, but to me, it's more the like harder edge stuff, or, you know, probably a Winger album on another day. Winger, In the Heart of the Young. There you go. That's the one. That's the one that I now listen to because it's got Rainbow in the Rose on it, which I think is one of the best songs to come out of that entire era. See what I mean? I just keep talking and I think of new albums like, no, that's my favorite. No, that's my favorite. They're all my favorite. What features would I like to see on an Axe-FX 4? Good question. I have absolutely no idea. I feel like the 3, the rate that it's getting firmware updates, it already kind of feels like if you compare the Axe-FX 3 when it came out and the Axe-FX 3 now with the current firmware, that we're kind of in Axe-FX 4 land already with the Cygnus amp modeling updates and new reverbs, and everything's kind of been overhauled. Yeah, it's a great question. I would love to see them make something like an FM0, so like an FM9 or an FM3 without the foot switches, with just some kind of basic MIDI jacks, maybe no screens, so you just control it from a USB. It's sort of like Fractal's equivalent of like a UAD satellite or something like that. That would be pretty cool. And, you know, maybe similar to the H9000, how you can get it without the screen. So you just run Axe Edit or something like that. That would feel like a cool option. A few things though that from a hardware perspective, I think would be really, really handy would be like either built-in Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. I know a lot of people have been requesting that. A setlist manager, that's something that I think could probably be written into the existing code. I would love it if that came out sooner rather than later. And, you know, a lot of people have talked about like a Kemper or neural style capture function on there. It would be really interesting to see if Fractal did an integrated thing like that, either on current hardware or on a future unit. But, you know, for now, I'm just pretty stoked with the way it sounds and feels and the flexibility and the way it can integrate with everything. So I don't think for my use case having stuff like drum samples in there would be that useful. But actually one thing I would love would be if they came out with like a polyphonic synth mode in there. Imagine Fractal's take on like the Boss SY1000 and baking all of that in, or having stuff like the Mutable Instruments Eurorack modules available in the Axe-FX 3, because I do know that that firmware is open source. So it would be cool to have like all these kind of cool glitch modules, or you've already got the grid style environment in there. It would be interesting to see their take on a synth style thing, or to make the synths playable with a MIDI controller. An expanded looper would be amazing, like a multi-track looper. Yeah, there's so much stuff. I really really am excited to see what like the next 5 years of firmware development looks like in the whole Fractal system. It's going to be a wild ride. It's already been a wild ride, but I think it's just going to be more and more amazing as time goes on. And last one for this week, how on earth did I meet my wife? Some of you have pointed out that she is from the United States. You might have noticed her sneaking around in a bunch of my videos before, or I've mentioned it before. The short version of the story is that we met when I was in the States, and we met through a friend of a friend. So she was doing some concert photography over there. We were over there playing music, and we wanted someone to come out and take some photos and do some video stuff. And this friend of a friend had worked with her before, and you know, we met and things happened, and I can see her sneaking over in the background here. So hopefully I'm doing a very accurate representation of this story. And then, you know, as these things tend to go, I moved back home, and then she was over in the States, and then she moved over here, and we decided to see if we could live together and not drive each other insane. And I still don't know how she puts up with me doing all this and making all this noise that I do. So yeah, oh, look at this, it's right on cue. It's hard. Hey, it's always hard. And on that note, I will say thank you all so much for watching the video. If you got a question for next week, put it in the comment section below. And I hope you all have an amazing Christmas. Spend it with the ones you love. I'm so lucky to be spending Christmas with the people that I love, and I love all of you as well. So please take it easy, and I will see you very, very soon. Cheers.